When my parents signed the $1, 5 meters family bookstore over to my sister, leaving me nothing, I just smiled. They next went to their publishing house, only to find a notice. Waiting rent was increasing 300%. My sister called Mom screaming. It was 11:51 p.m. on a Tuesday. I wasn't asleep. I was reconciling a client's spreadsheet when my phone lit up on the desk. A group text from my mother, Patricia. I read it once. Leah, your father and I have discussed it. The future of the publishing house belongs to Claire. We've decided to remove you as a business partner. The lawyer will send the paperwork tomorrow. It's what's best for the family. I stared at the words. Best for the family. A few seconds later, a small heart icon appeared next to the message. My sister Claire had loved it. Have you ever felt like the invisible one in your own family? Let me know your story down in the comments. I didn't cry. I didn't text back. Why? I didn't call my mother and ask her to explain. I just stared at that little heart icon from my sister and I felt quiet. It's a silence people mistake for peace, but it's not. It's the sound of a balance sheet being finalized. I looked at the clock. 11:52 p.m. I opened my laptop. You see, for the last 3 years, I had been the silent, invisible investor in my family's passion project, the small independent publishing house they were so proud of. My sister Claire was the creative face. She went to the literary parties, had the fancy lunches, and ran the company Instagram. My parents, Gregory and Patricia, were the legacy. They were the editors, the heart of the brand. And I was the one who made it all possible. While they were building their dream, I was the one working a separate full-time accounting job, and every month on the 1st, I quietly paid the rent for their beautiful brick and glass office space. $4,000. Every month for 3 years. I never missed a payment. I never asked for a thank you. I just did it because that's what I do. I'm the responsible one. I opened my web browser. I clicked on my bank's login page. My hands weren't shaking. I typed in my password. I clicked on the Bill Pay tab. I saw the scheduled payment, $4,000. Paid to Pacific Crest Properties, LLC, scheduled for November 1st. It was 11:58 p.m. I moved my cursor over the payment. I saw the small blue link that said, "Cancel this payment." I didn't hesitate. I clicked it. A small box popped up. "Are you sure you want to cancel this scheduled payment?" I thought about my mother's words. It's what's best for the family. I thought about Claire's little heart icon. I clicked confirm. The page refreshed. A green check mark appeared. Your payment has been successfully canceled. The clock on my laptop turned to 12:03 a.m. I closed the laptop. This wasn't revenge. It was just accounting. You have to understand it wasn't just the rent. Canceling that $4,000 payment wasn't a tantrum. It was a correction. For years, I'd been the family's silent investor, the one who absorbed the risk while they collected the credit. When Claire wanted to go to a private arts college, my parents co-signed the loans, but they couldn't make the math work for the payments. So I paid them $18,000 a year for 3 years straight. I paid it directly from my account. Claire sent me photos from her study abroad in Paris, and my mother would call and say, "Isn't it wonderful, Leah? You're giving your sister the world." Module start. And you might ask, Leah, why? Why would you do that? Why would you let them treat you like a walking ATM? It's a fair question. The answer isn't simple. When you grow up in a family that uses love as a currency, you learn to play the role you're given. and my role was the responsible one. It's the invisible chain of the survivor. You're not living in a home, you're living in a prison without bars where the walls are made of guilt and the locks are made of keeping the peace. You learn that your value isn't in who you are, but in what you provide. You become self-sufficient because you have to. You become the reliable one because it's the only way to earn a scrap of affection. Your silence isn't weakness, it's a survival strategy. You swallow your own needs to manage theirs. You become so good at being fine that they stop asking if you are. Module end. I didn't just pay for her education. 2 years ago, I saved the family legacy. The historic bookstore. The one worth on paper $1.5 million. My father had leveraged it against the publishing house, taken out bad loans, and a foreclosure notice had shown up. He called me panicked. I can't lose the store, Leah. It was your grandparents' dream. So I drained my savings. I paid the overdue property taxes. I paid the lien. I stabilized the debt. I did it because my father sat across from me at a diner, his hands shaking, and said, "Thank you, Leah. All of this, the store, the business, it's a shared legacy. It'll all be for both of you girls 50-50. I promise." I believed him. I thought I was an investor. I didn't realize I was just the first person they'd liquidate. That text message wasn't just a betrayal. It was the moment I realized the shared legacy was just another bill I was expected to pay. I slept. For the first time in months, I actually slept through the night. When I woke up at 7 a.m., my phone looked like a disaster zone. 17 missed calls, 22 text messages. The storm had arrived. I made coffee. I sat at my kitchen table, watched the steam rise from the mug, and calmly began to review the damage. The first text was from Claire, sent at 5:03 a.m. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, Leah, but you're being incredibly childish. You're messing everything up. You need to fix this." Fix this. That was always my job, wasn't it? Then a voicemail from my mother, Patricia. I put it on speaker. Her voice wasn't apologetic. It was sharp, cold, and hysterical. "Leah, call me back immediately. I just got an email from the property management. The rent payment was returned. Do you know what a mess you've created? They're charging us late fees. This is humiliating. You have to call them and fix this right now." She wasn't sorry she'd betrayed me. She was just angry that her betrayal had a consequence. I sipped my coffee. It tasted perfect. But the final exhibit was from my father, Gregory. He hadn't called. He hadn't texted. He had gone public. I opened Facebook, and there it was. A public post from 6:15 a.m. for all his friends and our extended family to see. It was a picture of a sunset paired with his usual brand of passive-aggressive martyrdom. It's a sad day when your own children forget who raised them. We give them everything, and they repay us with selfishness. Gratitude is a lost virtue. I read the comments already flooding in. "Thinking of you, Gregory. So sorry you're dealing with this. You're a great father. Don't let them get you down." He had given them everything. While I paid his bills, I took a screenshot of the post and saved it. I felt that last little bit of guilt. I was holding on to that tiny, flickering voice that whispered, "Maybe you're overreacting. Just evaporate." They weren't sorry. They were attacking. They weren't just ungrateful. They were defiant. They had just confirmed my decision. They felt entitled to my money, entitled to my legacy, and entitled to my silence. They were about to find out they had just lost all three. They had made their choice. They had turned our family, our legacy, into a cold, hard business transaction. So I decided to treat it like one. I didn't call my mother back. I didn't respond to Claire's texts. I didn't engage with my father's public pity party on Facebook. Instead, I made a different call. Julia, hi, it's Leah. Julia had been my friend since college. She was one of the few people who actually saw the family dynamics for what they were. She was also conveniently one of the sharpest contract lawyers in Seattle. Leah, she answered, her voice warm. It's been a minute. Everything okay? Not really, I said. I poured myself another cup of coffee and walked to the window. I need to hire you. I need to know what my options are for recovering a series of, let's call them undocumented business investments I made in my family's publishing house. There was a silence on the other end. Oh, Leah, what did they do now? I told her everything. The text message, the rent, the bookstore, the $18,000 a year tuition payments for Claire, the shared legacy promise my father made. When I was done, Julia was quiet for a long time. Okay, she said finally, her voice all business. Okay, this is a lot. The tuition might be a hard sell. They'll argue it was a gift. But the rent payments and the money to save the bookstore, you made those with a clear verbal promise of equity. That's a breach of contract. What do I need to do? Send me everything she said. Every bank statement, every email, every text message you have that mentions the bookstore, the rent, or the shared legacy. Let me see what kind of case we have. I want it all back, Julia, I said, my voice low and steady. Every cent I paid to save that bookstore. Let me dig, she said. I'll call you in a few days. The next few days were quiet. My family was clearly waiting for me to panic and turn the money back on. I just kept forwarding my call log to a new harassment folder. The call came on Friday. Leah, Julia said, and I knew from her tone it was bad. It's worse than we thought. What do you mean they don't have a case against me? No, we have a bigger case against them. I sat down. Explain. I was digging into the publishing house's financials, looking for your investments, she said. I pulled their state filings. 2 years ago, your father and Claire applied for a small business development grant from the state. Okay. So they got it. A $40,000 grant to expand their digital footprint. I don't understand, I said. What does that have to do with me? Leah, she said slowly, they applied for it as you. The application lists you, Leah, as a founding partner and head of financial operations. They used your name and your social security number. The coffee cup in my hand felt suddenly very cold. Julia, are you sure? I'm looking at the signature page right now. They forged it. They took $40,000 from the state of Washington in your name, and you never knew. I stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the gray Seattle sky. It wasn't just ingratitude. It wasn't just greed. This was criminal. They stole from me, I whispered. No, Leah Julia said, her voice hard as steel. They didn't just steal from you. They committed identity theft and felony fraud. This just changed everything. I didn't have to wait long. The next day, the pounding started. It wasn't a knock. It was a frantic, desperate banging that rattled the deadbolt on my apartment door. I looked through the peephole. It was my mother, Patricia, but not the composed, judgmental woman from the Facebook post. This version was a wreck. Her eyes were red and swollen, her hair was a mess, and I could see her hands shaking even through the distorted glass. I opened the door just a few inches, keeping the chain latched. Mom, what are you doing here? Leah, thank God. You have to let me in. Please, you have to help us. Her voice was high cracking. I unlatched the chain and opened the door. She practically fell inside, collapsing onto the small bench I keep by the entryway. She was sobbing, not quiet, dignified tears, but ugly, panicked sobs that seemed to be torn out of her. It's over, Leah. Everything is over. I just stood there watching her. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel anger. I felt clinical, like a doctor observing a symptom. What's over, Mom? The bank, she choked out. They called. After the thing with the grant, they're calling in the loans. The business loans the second mortgage on the bookstore. They said fraud investigation and breach of contract. She looked up at me, her face a mask of terror. We're going to lose everything. The house, the store. Your father is a mess. He won't even get out of bed. And Claire, there it was. The real reason she was here. Claire is being destroyed. Her reputation, she's facing legal trouble, Leah. She didn't know what she was signing. Your father told her it was routine. You have to do something for your sister. Please, do something for my sister. The words echoed in the quiet apartment. The same sister who had hearted the message that cut me out of the family business. The same sister who called me overreacting when I stopped paying her bills. The same sister who was the creative face of the company, while I was the silent investor. I looked at my mother, her face streaked with mascara, waiting for me to fix it, waiting for the responsible one, the boring one, the invisible one, to clean up the mess one last time. Wait here, I said. I didn't go to my laptop. I didn't go for my checkbook. I walked to the filing cabinet in my office, the one I'd meticulously organized. I pulled out a single thick envelope. I walked back to the living room and handed it to her. She fumbled with it, her hands shaking so badly she almost tore the paper. What is this? Is this money? Did you call the bank? Did you fix it? It's a copy, I said. My voice was quiet even. It's a copy of the formal fraud complaint I filed with the Attorney General's office 2 weeks ago, the one that started the investigation. She stared at the document, her brain refusing to process the words. I watched her eyes scan the page. Complaint, filed by Leah, against Gregory and Claire. Her eyes shot up to meet mine. The panic was gone, replaced by a cold, dawning, bottomless horror. You did this. You told me I had to do something for my sister, I said. I already did. I walked to the door and opened it. Leah, no, please. You don't understand. Goodbye, Mom. I gently closed the door, engaging the deadbolt. I leaned against it, listening to the sound of her muffled, hysterical cry on the other side of the wood. It lasted for a minute, then 2. Then finally, just the sound of the elevator dinging down the hall. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel sad. I just felt balanced. The ledger was balanced. The fallout wasn't a single explosion. It was a slow, controlled demolition. My complaint to the Attorney General triggered a full investigation. Faced with irrefutable evidence of identity theft and wire fraud, my family's entire fragile structure collapsed. The historic bookstore, the $1.5 million asset that was supposed to be Claire's future, was leveraged against the business loans they'd taken out. When the fraud was exposed, the bank called in those loans immediately. They had to sell. I watched the for sale sign go up from a coffee shop across the street. It sold in less than a week for just enough to cover what they owed the bank, the state, and the lawyers. The publishing house was dissolved. My father, Gregory, his reputation in the small Seattle publishing community shattered, was forced into an early and unwelcome retirement. And Claire, my sister, who had never held a job that wasn't funded by our parents, was suddenly just Claire, 29 years old with a marketing degree and no resume. I heard from a cousin that she was applying for entry-level jobs. I received a check in the mail one day, a cashier's check for $48,000. My share of the liquidation, after all the debts were paid. It felt small and heavy in my hand. That night, I opened my laptop. I found the file I hadn't touched since that day, the ledger. I opened the spreadsheet, line after line of my life. $18,000 for Claire's tuition, $4,000 for rent, another $4,000, another, the tax bill that saved the bookstore. I scrolled to the bottom. The grand total of what I had poured into them, it was a staggering number. Years of my life quantified in black and white. Years I would never get back. I stared at that number for a long time. I thought about the cost. Not just the money, but the cost of being the responsible one. The cost of my silence. I highlighted the final cell. I right-clicked, and I hit delete. The entire column vanished. The spreadsheet was blank. I closed the laptop. That night, for the first time in years, I slept through till morning. No guilt, no 3 a.m., panic, no noise, just silence. And maybe you know that feeling. Maybe you're the one who's always sitting on the edge of the family photo. The one who's always available to help, the one who's so good at handling things that no one ever asks if you're okay. You're the quiet one, the responsible one, the one who absorbs the tension, pays the emotional bill, and never gets a thank you. You've learned that your love is only valued when it's useful. And you've convinced yourself that this is just the price of peace. That being the easy one is your role. Let me just tell you, as someone who has been there, you are not on the fringes. You are the foundation they're all standing on. And the moment you decide to stop holding them up, you'll be amazed at how quickly they learn to see you. Your worth is not a transaction. It's not measured in the problems you solve or the sacrifices you make. You deserve to be celebrated, not just tolerated. Don't wait for them to see you. See yourself. And if you have a story about feeling invisible, I want to hear it. Share it in the comments below, because your story matters.